Hi everybody, I'm Jack and this is Raw Tropical Living. How are you doing today? This is a Friday afternoon. The week is almost over. All I'm doing is waiting around for a late afternoon yoga class and then it's time for the weekend. Not like I need a whole lot of rest. I haven't done much today. I've been outside taking some sun. Just got through making a smoothie. And I thought I'd do this video to finish up the week. The reason I'm doing this video is people have made comments in the past because I've talked about my drinking. So people have made comments. People have asked me to do a video on how I quit drinking or my experience with alcohol. And people, even recently somebody sent me an email asking me about this, telling me I should make a video. So I didn't want people to think that I was ignoring them on that. It's just that this is a serious subject. So I felt like I had to make a video. I felt like I couldn't just ignore people. But I don't think I have a whole lot of help to give. I think people think maybe I have some sort of, secret or info or some kind of trick how I did it. And I really don't have a lot to give. I'll just try to kind of share a little bit of my story. And maybe you can find some help in that. But my drinking was a little bit different than a lot. I was always the heaviest drinker in the group. I remember getting crazy drunk in high school. I remember being so drunk before I even had a driver's license. I remember a couple of times just being passed out on the side of the road and older friends would come around. I live in a small town and would pick me up. You could always go down to the convenience store and give somebody a few bucks outside to get alcohol. So I didn't have an alcohol problem. I mean, I would do it from time to time, but I did start at a rather young age. Went through some pretty heavy drinking even in high school sporadically. Serious binge drinking once the time I got to college. I mean, and I was a big old boy when I was in college. I got to a high of 245 pounds. I still went to the gym even though I was a heavy drinker, but I was just a big old football looking player dude. And I could drink some serious amounts. I mean, I've always been a daytime drinker. I'd start up in the day. I could easily put down a case of beer and a bottle of something. But yeah, I did some nasty drinking in college, just blackout, just ungodly type stuff. And it just kept going from there. And everywhere I went, I was the one in the group that always, when everybody said, okay, it's time to go, it's time to break this up, I always had to go a little bit more. I always had to be the big dog. I always drank more than anybody else. There was no alcohol I didn't like. Everybody has their story about, oh, I can't drink this, I got really drunk. No, I liked everything and I could drink everything straight. Used to make fun of people. You didn't mix Jack Daniels with Coca-Cola or anything like that. You drank it like a man. So I probably was always kind of had an ego of that drinker. Always was the heavy drinker. I went through a lot of years, after university. I moved to Miami. And all through that time, I drank and drove, something I'm not proud of at all. And I look back and thank God I didn't hurt anybody. Got several DUIs, was only convicted on one of them, wrecked several cars. Almost every problem I ever had in life came from drinking. I guess I didn't really want to admit that for a long time. But yeah, I did a lot of binge drinking even in my 30s. By the time I'd come to Costa Rica when I was 35, even though I did a lot of bad stuff and a lot of heavy drinking and went through periods, I'd slowed down a little bit. I had one, I forgot what year this was, probably when I was 33, 34, somewhere in there, where I had like almost 200 and something blackouts in a year. I blacked out about 2/3 of the year. And when I talk about going on binge drinking, I'm not talking about this cute little stuff what they call in college binge drinking. That's amateur hour, people. That is amateur hour. Binge drinking for me wasn't like going out every night and having 6 or 7 cocktails. Binge drinking for me is you would go out and you would drink until you literally came home and passed out. And then I would have booze on the bedside table. I'd wake up at 7 o'clock the next morning and do a couple of shots of Jack Daniels. And then I would drink throughout the day until I passed out again that night. And I would do this over and over for 5 or 6 days. A lot of times the aftermath of this would be just me after about day 5 or 6. I'd be in a bed. I'd turn the air conditioning just as cold as it could get, just get in the dark. And I'd be in the bed, curled up in the fetal position under the covers, a lot of time just shaking. Shaking it off, getting that horrible, just the shock I had put my body in. okay, we'll go through it. I did that for a lot of years, think 30 years of heavy drinking. Getting down to Costa Rica, went through a couple of bad drinking bouts here. Yes, I definitely did some binge drinking here, not as much. I slowed down slightly. Went through some dry times here, went through some pretty sober times, stayed in fairly good shape, got pretty buff a couple of times, ate pretty healthy several times. So there was a lot of health in some of those years, but I was a healthy drunk. So get down to about the end, we're getting down to about 3 years ago. I just started really having this, like, look, you're going to have to pay for this with your health. Finally, the health thing dawned in about, is your liver going to be shot? Are you going to have hepatitis? Are you going to have cirrhosis, cancer of your liver? So I just started getting really worried about this. And, I had a couple of episodes in, towards the end of 2011, early 2012. Actually, January 1st, 2012, I was going to do the New Year's resolution thing. And that was the day I was supposed to, like dry out for a while or either take control of the drinking and start getting healthy. Had no plans on quitting. Well, missed the deadline. In fact, for some reason that year, 2011, New Year's Eve, 2012, New Year's Day, I didn't go out on New Year's Eve, but for some reason I woke up raging on New Year's Day. Went and had a cheeseburger and just started drinking beers. And by the end of New Year's Day, I was just wrecked. In fact, I went somewhere, I stumbled into a bad neighborhood that night, fell down, almost broke my shoulder, couldn't hardly move my shoulder for 3 or 4 months. So that was one episode when I stumbled into a real bad part of town and just realized I could have got the crap kicked out of me, mugged. Because I walked in bad neighborhoods. I've always liked going in neighborhoods I shouldn't go in. So that was the episode. I was like, okay, well now you're already behind and now you have another drunken episode. Well, a couple of weeks later, mid-January 2012, had another episode. Thought I had lost my computer, my camera, all my stuff. So just almost was in a depression, was in a dark room for 2 days. And I'm like, oh my God. Got the computer back, and that was it. It was, I was actually, the last time I got drunk was the third week of January 2012. I was watching the AFC NFC playoffs. And that day, because I had lost my computer the night before, so I was drunk already, so I just kept the drunk going, drank on Sunday while I watched football, and then just woke up in a real depressed state on Monday. Well, that was it. I didn't know I had my computer back yet, but I said, okay, well, this is enough, I got to stop. Luckily, I got my computer back, so I said, it's time to dry out. That was a slap in the face. I said, all right, I'm going to dry out. Still had no intention of, like, took the oath of, like, I'm quitting and I'm never going to drink again. But I said, okay, time to dry out. So, for the next 2 months, I'd say, yeah, about the next 2 months from mid-January till about my birthday in mid-March, I didn't have a drop of alcohol. And all during this time, I started changing the way I was eating. I was kind of in that transition part I've told you guys about. So I'm learning more and more about health. And as I've stopped the drinking, and I'm eating better, and I'm eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, still not vegan. Didn't know about the whole raw vegan thing, but still eating a lot better, losing the weight, feeling a lot better, not drinking. Actually, I gave myself 1 week without drinking. I didn't want to do them on the same day. After a week without drinking, I put down the cigarettes too. So we roll along, and all during that time, I'm studying more and more. I'm trying to learn about antioxidants, reversing damage in your body, just general health. So I get to my birthday, and I've been reading different stuff, and a glass of wine is good for the heart, and dark chocolate in small amounts is good for you. So conventional wisdom goes. So I started almost religiously. I was having a glass of red wine from about mid-March. I was having a glass of red wine at night and just 1 square of dark chocolate. And I stayed strict with that. After that part, I never got drunk again. I stayed to my 1 glass of wine a night, and then in about June of that year, so I'd say April, May, June, for about 3 months I had my 1 glass of wine a night. And then I learned about the raw vegan lifestyle. Then I really started learning about real health, natural hygiene, getting all the toxins out of your body. And somehow there was just a decision made that in that period, like, yeah, I'm not going back to alcohol. I don't know that I actually said it right at that point, like I'll never drink again, but I didn't have any more wine after that weekend, and I haven't had a drink since. So it really wasn't I just made a conscious decision. There was no struggle in it for me. There was no process to go through. There were no meetings to go to. There were no steps. I had just made a choice that drinking wasn't for me anymore. And that's the reason why I tell people a lot of time that I was a drunk, not an alcoholic, because I do think alcoholism is a disease. And if I had been an alcoholic, I probably wouldn't have been able just to make that conscious decision. It wouldn't have just been a cerebral decision, you know. It would have been tough, even though I knew that alcohol was bad for me. Now, there have been times, I almost call them like times of nostalgia. I've never really had any strong cravings to go back. Like I say, there's been a little bit of nostalgia. I'll go by, like it was social. I just enjoyed sitting on the bar stool, interacting with the bartender, interacting with other drunks around me. Or just people drinking around me. I drank in some dingy little bars back when I was in my mid-late 20s. If you've ever seen this movie Barfly, I drank in a lot of little dirty, depressing, dingy bars like that with middle-aged people, middle-aged women with too heavy makeup, smoking the cigarette, a cocktail always in hand, people, you know, in there crying to the bartender because they've been cut off, you know, total alcoholics. You know, a place I could have gone or either just ended up being a total drunk. Somehow I always kept myself away from just going over the edge. I could always pull myself back when things got, you know, I thought too bad. I dried out quite a few times in my life. So the actual quitting wasn't a problem. It was just, I finally had that reason, that motivation, and it was the time where I just had no desire to go back to that lifestyle again, and no desire to drink. I've never been sitting around the house. I've never had the desire just for the alcohol since I quit. I mean, I don't sit around the house and think, God, you know, it's not like sometimes even things I've given up eating, I will sit around and say, ooh, I sure would like to eat one of those. I've never sat around and gone, oh, I sure would like to drink some vodka, or ooh, I sure would like to drink some Jack Daniels. It was just, if anything, sometimes I'll walk by a little dive bar and I'm like, ooh, I sure would have loved that bar. I sure would have loved sitting on that bar for the whole afternoon and chilling with the bartender and running up a good bar tab and interacting with everybody, but I don't do it. So I don't know. I don't know if anything about this can help you or help anybody that you might have in your life that has a drinking problem. The biggest thing I'm going to say is don't try to fight yourself. Don't get into the whole semantics thing. Sometimes people are so into the semantics things. People would try to argue with me for hours that I was an alcoholic. I don't think it matters if you're an alcoholic or not. I did have a drinking problem. I did something that was detrimental to my body for decades. Sometimes I actually wish I had been an alcoholic, because I think I'm a smart enough guy that if I'd have been an alcoholic and I'd really seen the true signs of alcoholism, I might would have gone and got help. And I would have saved so much wear and tear on my liver, on all the cells in my body. So don't sit around, listen, whether you're an alcoholic, whether you're not an alcoholic, is really of no consequence except in how you might treat your drinking. It doesn't matter. And it's even worse if you can, you know, the people that can handle their liquor. That's worse because you're able to process a lot of liquor through your body. You're just not getting drunk, but all that alcohol is still doing the same effects on your liver through all the cells of your body. So the only thing I think I can help you with out there is alcohol is a toxin. I'm not going to sit here, especially after my lifetime, and preach you shouldn't drink it at all. The only way I could ever see myself drinking again, and I think I've mentioned this before, was if I went to wine country somewhere. If I was somewhere really good with some wine, I would have a glass of wine if I was in France or Italy and I got offered a good glass of wine. If I'm in Napa Valley, I'm going to have a glass of wine, but it'll be just an experience like that. If you have issues with drinking, or I would just say, you know, even if you're like, there's a lot of these, the housewife wine mom, soccer mom type thing, these women that are obsessed with alcohol, with wine. There's really nothing, you know, if you tell yourself, okay, a glass isn't going to hurt you, I guess a glass isn't going to hurt you, but it is a toxin in the end. Alcohol is a toxin, and it's not something that our body processes. So I'll just leave it with that. I won't preach anymore, but if you even, you know, if you're knocking back a few cocktails, we all know if we have a problem with alcohol. And if you have a problem with alcohol, be honest with yourself. And if you need to get help, get help. Because I'm not afraid of asking for help. and that's not one of those things. I think sometimes people are too proud or they don't want to admit they have a problem. I would have freely gone if I thought I was an alcoholic. I would have gone and said, hey, I'm an alcoholic. I can stand up in front of people and say, hey, I'm Jack, I'm an alcoholic. But I was a drunk. I drank for way too long, and I eventually handled it in my own way. You don't have to wait until what I did, because some people aren't as lucky as me. I don't get sick. I came to this lifestyle pretty healthy. Maybe I will have to pay my debt for all that drinking one day, but I think I got lucky, whereas most people are not. Most people aren't going to be able to drink like I did for 30 years and still be able to be healthy. I mean, I thank God every day I don't have cirrhosis already, or I don't have some sort of a cancer from alcohol. People don't know that alcohol is big on causing mouth cancers, throat cancers, cancers above the neck. But do what you got to do. If you're trying to live a healthy lifestyle, you know already you don't need to be putting the alcohol in your mouth. So act accordingly. Anyhow, I don't know if this one helped at all. I just thought I needed to address it so people didn't think I was making light of a very serious subject or ignoring a very serious subject. Hope this helps somebody, and I hope you guys have a great weekend, and love you. Peace.